Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the class of biology on the fascinating world of biology. In this course, we will learn about respiration, gas exchange system in humans. Here, our main purpose is to improve our reading skills. Now, let's start the topic of respiration. We look at this diagram and try to understand the respiratory tract. Which organs, which parts are involved in the respiration process? First of all, here is present nasal cavity, nose, nasal cavity, and in nasal cavity, the external nostril is present, and this tract is downward inside, and here is the pharynx is present, and below the epiglottis is present, and here is the larynx is present. Larynx is also called voice box, and here trachea is present. Trachea is also called windpipe, and we look here that lungs are present, left side and right side, cut end of ribs cut ends, pleural membranes is present here, and here are small dotted branchy shaped structure is called cluster of alveoli, air sacs, and inside the lungs here are fluid is present which is called pleural fluid, and the smallest microscopic veins are called bronchioles, and inside the lungs are present diaphragm is present, and here is bronchi, and here are present external intercostal muscles. Here are internal intercostal muscles, and that's the lungs. The human gas exchange system. Now we read about the respiratory organs, your respiratory system. Gas exchange system in humans. The organs involved in gas exchange in humans are shown in figure 10.8. They include the two lungs in the thorax and the air passage leading to them. The air passage consists of the nasal passage, pharynx, larynx, trachea, bronchi, bronchioles. The thoracic cavity, ribs, diaphragm, and related muscles are also vital parts of the gas exchange system. These are the respiratory tract. First of nasal cavity, pharynx, larynx, trachea, bronchi. These are bronchi. These are bronchi. The nose. Air usually enters your body through the two external nostrils, external nearest, whose walls bear a fringe of hairs. The nostrils lead into two nasal passages which are lined with a moist mucous membrane. Breathing through the nose has the following advantages. Dust and foreign particles, including bacteria in the air, are trapped by the haze in the nostrils as well as by the mucus on the mucous membrane. As air passes through the nasal passage, it is warmed and moistened before it enters the lungs. Harmful chemicals may be detected by small sensory cells in the mucous membrane. Here are mucous membranes are present external nostril, air enter through the external nostrils, and here is present, and mucous membrane is also present, which function is to trap the bacteria which are present in the air. From the nose to the trachea, the air in your nasal passage enters the pharynx. From the pharynx, air passes into your larynx and then into your trachea through an opening known as the glottis. Air is entered then pharynx and enter into the larynx. The trachea and bronchi. The trachea lies in front of the esophagus. It extends downwards from the larynx into the chest cavity. It is supported by C-shaped rings of cartilage which ensure that the trachea is always kept open. The lower end of the trachea divides into two tubes, the bronchi, singular bronchus, one to each lungs. Each bronchus divides repeatedly and ends in very fine bronchioles. Each bronchioles end in a cluster of air sacs. Bronchi enter into two lungs and further divided into very small shaped bronchioles. The thinner walls of the trachea and bronchi are lined by epithelium bearing cilia. Gland cells in the epithelium secrete mucus to trap dust particles and bacteria. The cilia help to sweep these particles up the bronchi and trachea into the pharynx. From here, they are swallowed into the esophagus. Look at this diagram and try to understand the structure of trachea and the process of air passage. Here are epiglottis is present, and here are larynx, and these are trachea, C-shaped ring of cartilage. These are C-shaped ring. Section taken from here. Section taken from here. Ligament, connective tissue, C-shaped ring of cartilage, thin epithelium, trachea, lumen cavity in trachea, features of the air passage, and microscopic structure of dead parts look like this. Here are gland cell present, and these are mucus produced by gland cell. Nucleus, here are cytoplasm is present, cell surface membrane, from lungs to pharynx. Here are thread-like structure is present which are called cilia. Epithelium enlarged. Look this diagram and try to understand the parts of tracheal system. The lungs. Each lung lie in the pleural cavity within which the lung expands. The pleural cavity is lined by two transparent elastic membranes called the pleura, singular pleuron. Pleural membrane. The inner pleuron covers the lung. The outer pleuron is in contact with the walls of the thorax and the diaphragm. A thin layer of lubricating fluid between the pleura allows the membrane to glide over each other easily when the lungs expand and contract during breathing. Within the lungs, the bronchial tubes divide repeatedly, giving rise to smaller tubes known as bronchioles. Bronchioles are not supported by cartilage. Each bronchiole ends in a cluster of air sac alveoli, singular alveolus. Thousands of alveoli are found in the lungs, providing a very large surface area for gaseous exchange. The alveoli are well supplied with blood capillaries for gaseous exchange. Spacious lungs. The total surface area of the alveoli in both lungs has been estimated to be equal to the surface area of a tennis court. That is 50 times more than the whole area of your skin. Look at this diagram and try to understand the. Here are bronchi present. Bronchi divided and expand in the lungs which are called bronchioles. Here are pleural fluids. Pleural fluids mean cavity here in which the lungs are present. Cluster of alveoli. These are the cluster of alveoli. Pleural membrane. The outer membrane boundary line is called pleural membrane. Cut end of rib. Diaphragm is present. External intercostal muscle. External means outer side. Internal intercostal muscle means inside. External outside. Internal inside. Lungs. The lungs showing alveoli. Blood vessel from heart, blood vessel to heart, air in and out, air in and out, and crystallized capillary network. Alveolar walls are very thin, moist, and well supplied with blood capillaries. Gaseous exchange between the alveoli and the blood capillaries takes place through the walls of the alveoli. How are the lungs adapted for efficient gaseous exchange? The numerous alveoli in the lungs provide a large surface area. The walls of the alveolus is only 1 cell thick. This ensures a faster rate of diffusion of gases through it. A thin film of moisture covers the surface of the alveolus. This allows oxygen to dissolve in it. The walls of the alveoli are richly supplied with blood capillaries. The flow of blood maintains the concentrations gradients of gases. The chest cavity. Your chest wall is supported by the ribs. Your ribs are attached dorsally to the backbone, vertebral column. Backbone is also called vertebral column in such a way that they can move up and down. The ribs are attached ventrally to the chest bone or sternum. Sternum. Humans have 12 pairs of ribs, but only the first 10 pairs, counting from above, are attached to the sternum. The remaining pairs are free ribs are not attached to the sternum. Two sets of muscles, the external and intercostal muscles, can be found between the ribs. They are antagonistic muscles. When the external intercostal muscle contract, the internal intercostal muscle relax and vice versa. It means that when external intercostal muscle contract, then internal intercostal muscle become at rest position. The ribs and the intercostal muscles. Left lung intercostal muscle removed to show the left lungs. These are the ribs. 12 pair of ribs. Here is internal intercostal muscle. Internal intercostal muscle present here. Here our outside muscles are called external intercostal muscles, and the central part's bony structure is called sternum, and ribs are connected in the sternum. Ribs connected into the sternum. And vertebral columns. Here our vertebral column is present. Look at this X-rayed structures of the lungs, chest cavity. The thorax is separated from the abdomen by a dome-shaped sheet of muscles and elastic tissue called the diaphragm. When the diaphragm muscles contract, the diaphragm flattens downwards, and when they relax, the diaphragm arches upwards again. The working of the internal intercostal muscles and the diaphragm change the volume of the thoracic cavity. Inspiration or inhalations. To avoid confusion, the words upwards and downwards are used with reference to the person standing in the upright position. Look at this diagram and understand the structures and passage of respirations and inhalations. Front view, ribs and sternum raised upward, vertebral column, sternum, ribs and sternum raised. Ribs swing up and increase volume of thorax. Diaphragm contract and flattens. Volume of thorax increases. Side view, air enters lungs. Air enter lungs. Movement of ribs cage during inspiration. When you breathe in or inspire, the following events takes place. Your diaphragm contracts and flattens. Your external intercostal muscles contract while your internal intercostal muscles relax. Your ribs move upward and outwards. Your sternum also move up and forward. The volume of your thoracic cavity increases. Air pressure in your lungs causes them to expand to fill up the enlarged space in your thorax. Expansion of your lungs causes the air pressure inside them to decrease. Atmospheric pressure is now higher than the pressure within your lungs. This causes air to rush into your lungs. The path of the air into the lungs is shown below. External nostrils. Air enter through the external nostrils and then into nasal passages and then enter into the pharynx and then enter into the larynx and then enter into the trachea and then enter into the bronchi, bronchioles and then enter into the alveoli. The whole process is the passage of air into the lungs and finally into the alveoli. A model that demonstrates the action of the diaphragm when the rubber sheet's diaphragm is pulled down. The increase in volume causes a drop in air pressure in the bell jar. Atmospheric pressure outside, which is now higher than that in the jar, rushes in to fill up the balloon's lungs. There is a short passage before exhalations which allows gaseous exchange to occur between the alveoli air and the blood. Expiration or exhalations. When you breathe out or expire, the following events take place. Your diaphragm relaxes and arches upwards. Your internal intercostal muscles contract while your external intercostal muscles relax. Your ribs move downwards and inwards. Your sternum also moves down to its original positions. The volume of your thoracic cavity decreases. Your lungs are compressed and air pressure inside them increases. As the volume decreases, air pressure within the lungs is now higher than atmospheric pressure. The air is forced out of your lungs to the exterior. Look at this diaphragm relaxes and arches upward. Diaphragm relax, arches upward. Arches upward. Here are rib cage, ribs and sternum return to original position. Ribs and sternum into original position. Air expelled from the lungs. Air out of the lungs. Air out of the lungs. Volume of thorax decreases. Thorax volume is decreases here. And here thorax volume increases. Look that this area is large. Inhalation, inspiration and in expiration volume of thorax decrease. Movement of rib cage during expiration. Ribs swing down and decrease volume of thorax. Here that's ribs, sternum, center part is sternum, bone-like structure. Vertebral column is here present and front views. Ribs showing down and decreases volume of thorax. Here is an easy way to remember what happens to your intercostal muscles when you are breathing. When you inhale, you relax your internal intercostal muscle and contract your external intercostal muscle. When you exhale, your external intercostal muscle relax and your internal intercostal muscles contract. And here is we study the whole process of respirations in humans. We also looked at the whole system of respiratory tract. In this system we observed many structures which are involved in the gas exchange, and we also see that the path of air into the lungs, first of all through external nostrils, and then air pass into the nasal passage, and then air enter into the pharynx into the larynx into the trachea to air enter into the bronchioles, and at the end air enter into the alveoli. Then we look the inspirations process where volume of thorax increases and ribs and sternum raised, diaphragm contract and flattens. Side views of the air enters through lungs, and here we looked expiration in which the volume of thorax decreases, ribs and sternum return to original position. In inspiration is raised, ribs and sternum. Then we look to structure of chest cavity. In chest cavity we looked at the vertebral column is present. Here is left lung intercostal muscle removed to show the left lungs, and we looked at the inside structure between the structure which is bony structure called sternum. Ribs are connected to the sternum. External intercostal muscle present, and here is internal intercostal muscle is present, and here are ribs. Then we look the structures of lungs. Pleural membranes means the cavity in which lungs are present is called pleural. Cluster of alveoli presents, and Pleural fluid is present, bronchioles present, diaphragm, lungs, internal intercostal muscles, external intercostal muscle, bronchi present which enter into the lungs and the capillary networks, blood vessel from heart, blood vessel to heart, air in and out, air in and out. And the C-shaped ring of cartilage, epiglottis, larynx, trachea, section taken from here, ligament, connective tissue, nasal cavity, external nostrils, pharynx, epiglottis, larynx, trachea, cut end of rib, pleural membrane, cluster of alveoli, pleural fluid, bronchioles, diaphragm, heart, bronchi, external intercostal muscle, internal intercostal muscle, lungs. I hope this lecture is very for those learners which are slightly weak in reading skill. Now we will meet our next class in 2 months. Thank you so much for listening this lecture.